Okay, so let's talk about middleware. And just like with Redux, middleware it's something that we use between something. I know it's kind of confusing, but it's just like Redux. So again, on Express, we're going to be using middlewares the whole time. And I'm going to give you just a simple example. What happens that whenever we get a request, I don't know, from home, we want to add a header, a head with a style sheet, just with the CSS. So let's do it right now and see what happens. First, I'm going to say, of course, I'm going to create a head, open and close, and then I'm going to create a link, just like this. Now, link, of course, is going to get a type. The type is going to be text/CSS. Then we're going to have the rel, and the rel is going to be style sheet. Now, the location for this path, we need to pass a location. So I'm gonna set it to /CSS/style, and then .css. We don't have this file. We're going to create it right now. But right now, of course, we are calling to this. I'm going to create a folder that is going to be called public. That's good. I'm going to say public. And again, it's convention. Whenever you create a project, inside your public folder, you're going to have everything that's public, just like the index. But for now, I'm just going to put the HTML. I'm sorry, the CSS. So then I'm going to say CSS, and I'm going to create a file. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Let me delete it. I'm going to create a folder that calls CSS, not a file. CSS, and then inside the directory we say style CSS. Styles.css makes sense. Styles.css. Now let me just double check. It's a styles, plural. I'm going to save it. And of course we are making a request. If we go to home, we're going to get the background red. I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to do the same thing, but on the CSS. It's going to say body and then background of red, something like that. I'm going to reload the application and go to home, and we get hello dudes. But now if I do the inspect and go to the console, we are going to get it failed to load a resource styles.css. So we are passing the location of the CSS. We are just including a link for style like we always do, but Node needs to know where this file is, because right now we are just making a reference to something, but Express does not know how to handle this type of requests. It knows how to handle the get for home, for API user and everything else, but not for static files. And this is what CSS is a static file. So for this, to give instructions to Express into how to process static files, we need to use middlewares. Now, how do we use a middleware? It's real simple. First, we need to make a reference to app. Then we make use. And it kind of makes sense. Use something before this happens. So we're going to use this use, and inside here, we're going to pass the rule. If we get a request for / and then CSS, and notice that right here, the request, it's / CSS, is going to be starting with this. We want to do something. So what we do in this case is going to be comma, and then we pass the rule. In this case, we want to show some static files. So we say express, and we access to a method that is going to be called static, and open and close. So right here, what we need to do, we need to pass the location. Now again, with Node, you have one thing that is going to be called dir name. So dir name with double underscore is going to be the root directory of your application. So now what we do, we say dir name and we do plus, and we just concatenate strings. We can say public / and then CSS. So now whenever the application loads localhost 3000, whenever we go to home, it's going to know what this request it's all about, because we added a rule. And this is a middleware. This is how we apply a middleware. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to reload the page, and we are not getting an error anymore. And we get the background of red. Good. You know, that was real simple. So we could use middlewares for pretty much whatever we want. What happens if I want to do something before all of this logic? Before I get this, we run this get request whenever we get a request from home. I want to do something else. What we can do, we can make a reference to app, and then we use. Now, just like this methods with use, first we need to pass the first argument, which is the location. In this case, I want to do something at home, whenever we get a request for home. And then, of course, we run a function just like the other ones. Now, whenever this happens, we are still getting a request and we are still getting a response. So what I want to do, I want to console log on the terminal that someone made a request. I'm going to do console.log, open and close, and I'm going to say someone made a request for, and I'm gonna put the location. I'm gonna do plus, and then request. I'm gonna access the request, and then the URL. So I'm gonna say URL, just like this, and this is gonna be outputting the URL. So okay. Oh, I'm sorry, not home. Whenever we get this as a middleware, it's everywhere. So I'm gonna reload the page, and right here we get someone made a request for, and then /. If I go to API user / and then API Francis or whatever, we get for API Francis and whatever. You know, this one, it's all the locations. Just like React Router, same idea. Now we have a problem. If we check the application, we know, we can see that it's frozen. So we have a problem right here. Whenever you use middlewares, we use the keyword to register a middleware. You need to do something else because the application is going to enter here. It's going to say, oh, okay, I need to do this. It's going to do this. But then it's going to go to this one. It needs to render whatever you have right here. So this is a part of the problem. We need a way to tell Express that we are done doing this piece of code and that we want to move forward to the next logic we have on the JS. So right here inside each middleware, what you get is going to be an additional argument. It's going to be called next. So this next, you're going to call this next whenever your code is done. So I'm going to say next, open and close, and I'm going to save it. Now if I reload it, I get this user ID, it's 5001, the name it's Francis, and we get the console log. So whenever you use a middleware and you do something before this, for example, you need to call next at the end. If not, your application will get frozen. Okay, that's good. You can do a lot of things if you think about this. For example, you can get a console log. You know, it's kind of a stupid example, but you can set a cookie. You know, the first time that the user enters to your application, you can just set a cookie with whatever. Again, with Node, you have the ability to set cookies, of course. So I'm going to say response, and we're going to say cookie, just like this, cookie, open and close. And first is the cookie name, just like that. And then the second argument is going to be the cookie value. Oop. Just like this. I'm going to save it. The application is going to restart. Of course, we're going to make a new request. And if I check the cookies, we should be getting a cookie. So I'm going to go to application, and right here inside cookies, we should be getting the cookies for a local host. Let me make this bigger. So we get cookie name and then cookie value. So that one is working. This is a better example than this one. Most likely when you, if you use a middleware for cookies, you're going to do something like this. Maybe you have a special route. So same idea. You can put the special route right here, and it's going to add a cookie only whenever we get a request for that route. Good. That's good. Of course, there is a lot of documentation for cookies. I'm going to go right here and say Express JS, and then it's going to be called middleware. I'm sorry, not cookie, middleware. Going to press enter, and right here using Express middleware, and you get all the documentation. You can knock yourself out with this. Okay, so let's move forward to the next topic.